Okay, welcome to the fourth part in this series. This one took a bit longer to get up just because I actually did film this at least a week ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago. Um, but I had some problems with the files, and so I thought the best thing to do is just to refilm these first few. Um, well, me talking about these first few movies because I couldn't quite figure out the problem, so I'm gonna have to do it again. So I'm gonna let you know when. But some of the footage that I filmed was okay, so I'm gonna let you know when I'm gonna cut back to that. But I'm gonna have to do this first part again, and I took me a while to get around to doing this. But in this one we have mostly Eureka, BFI, and Criterions. But I am gonna start with just a few indicator titles. I actually have a package on the way of a few pre-orders and a few other stuff that I actually bought or ordered some time ago. So I'm always buying indicator whenever I can afford them. I prefer to buy them during sales, but some releases I don't want to risk missing out on. I think that I probably have more than I've picked out three here that I'm gonna just briefly talk about just because I like the label so much, but I'm sure that there's quite a lot more in on the shelf that I could be talking about, but I'm not really sure what I bought when, and I just thought that I don't always eat, I don't always have a ton of stuff to say about them either. They're always interesting to watch. The movies aren't always masterpieces. Like I think there's a few really great movies that I've seen from Indicator, and many really good ones and a lot of sort of mediocre ones, but I stick with them because I just love what they do so much, and I love that they highlight movies that might not necessarily be regarded as classics. Anyway, this first one I really did like a lot. This is called Charlie Bubbles. It's with Albert Finney, and it's also directed by him. I'm not sure how many movies he directed, but I think this is one of the few, if not the only one. This is a really entertaining, very kind of easy to watch, low key film. He plays this. I suppose I don't remember exactly what his profession was, but I would say that he's fairly well off financially. There's this scene when he comes home to his apartment and he sort of goes up to his study or to his office, whatever, where he hangs out, and he turns on a number of screens, like let's say six different screens, and each one of the screens is showing each one of the rooms in his apartment, and he has people working for him who are walking around and stuff, and he just seems to just be kind of sitting there and watching it for some reason, and I mostly just like that scene because it was interesting from just a cinematic perspective. I'm not sure exactly what it meant, but it was really entertaining. And then it sort of turns into a bit of a road trip movie. But I really had a lot of fun with it. Let's see. This one is called The Strange One, Ben Gazzara. I can't say that I really liked it, to be completely honest. It may be one of those films that I would like more if I gave it a second chance at some point, but I didn't really get along with it. This one was somewhere in between. Birdie, I've heard about this before. I've been wanting to see this before. I do think that I would have liked this one a lot more if I saw this like 5 years ago, or well, 10 years ago. Really, if I saw it when I was in my teens still, then I think I would have really enjoyed it. But now, it just seemed to be a little bit too melodramatic. I mean, these scenes in the mental hospital, asylum, whatever, they were not really to my liking. I did like the scenes, the flashback scenes, because the movie kind of cuts back and forth, sort of post and pre-war, I guess, with these two young people played by Matthew Modine and Nicolas Cage. And the pre-war stuff, the more innocent stuff, I suppose, although there were seriousness in those scenes as well. But I enjoyed those a lot more, because they were more entertaining to watch, and they were in a setting that I really enjoyed, and the camaraderie between the two of them was kind of sweet, and yeah, not a whole lot of unnecessary drama, I suppose, in those parts, but there was a lot of stuff that I didn't like in these parts that you can see on the cover. Maybe most people would think the opposite, like those are the strongest scenes in the hospital. Let's just say, but I don't know. I just didn't really like those scenes. We have a couple of box sets from Eureka, so this is gonna be the Eureka part now. The box sets are Buster Keaton films. I believe I showed this in the long video I made a couple months ago, but I believe maybe I mentioned that this was coming out then, and anyway, I haven't shown this before. I will say just quickly that I've seen Battling Butler since showing this last time, and I think that was a first time viewing. I'm pretty sure it was, because I don't remember anything from it. And I will say that the first sort of 20-30 minutes out in this, maybe not swamp area, but the kind of I don't know what word I should use to describe this, but this kind of outdoorsy area by a lake, whatever. There are some scenes in this area, which is sort of where the plot is set up. And before the plot gets started, before the battling butler itself sort of comes in, there were some really funny gags, like in this marsh area or this kind of muddy terrain. Again, I don't know how to describe it, but there was a really funny gag with that involved all of their equipment, because he plays a rich kind of spoiled dude, and he brings his butler in to this area, and he has all this luxurious stuff. He even has this ridiculous kind of rug made from like a bear skin or something. I don't remember the animal, but so it's pretty ridiculous, but everything starts to sink down into the mud at some point. And there's this scene where Buster Keaton and his love interest, they're sitting outside on a table, kind of resting there, both of their kind of elbows kind of closing in on each other, and then on the table, and then the table kind of sinks further and further into the mud. So there's a few gags like that involving things sinking, which I thought worked really well. But then unfortunately, when the plot kind of kicks in, there were a couple of elements to the plot that I couldn't quite figure out, and then how they were supposed to be working, or why there was confusion, and then I just thought that it was a bit bland. All of the boxing stuff, it just didn't really do anything for me. It just seemed to be very kind of generic slapstick stuff that I didn't really get a whole lot out of. But the first part I really had a lot of fun with. This one includes Go West, Our Hospitality, and College. I know I've seen these two before. In fact, Our Hospitality I've seen twice before. So I did actually watch it again though for the third time, and it just gets better and better. I know that the first time I saw it, I was a bit underwhelmed, but a lot of the ideas, the cleverness of the ideas and of the gags, and the fact that there doesn't seem to be anything that's out of place or that's going on for too long in the film. Everything is sort of there for a reason, and these things have sort of snuck up on me over the years, and I've started to look at it much differently than what I did when I saw it the first time. So I would say that this is one of my favorites from him. There's a lot of great stuff in it. And I could start to describe a couple scenes, but then I'm just gonna start to continue to describe everything else as well. So I'm gonna nip that in the bud. But these other two, I don't know if I've seen them before. I'm pretty sure I've seen College. I decided not to watch College now, but I'm pretty sure I've seen it, and I'm pretty sure that I wasn't a fan of it. Maybe the next time I see it, I will like it better. Go West, I actually don't know. I don't think I've seen it, but I could be mistaken. There's some really funny gags in Go West, but it mostly just seemed to be one gag after another, without that much of a plot or like a basis. The movie is set up really nicely, I thought, but although a little bit um, frustrating and exaggerated in terms of how unlucky Buster Keaton is in the beginning. But um, then when he gets to the when he actually goes west, I suppose it's good all the way through, but it's a little bit weaker than some of its other ones. The final act is pretty great, but overall, it's a good one. Not one of my favorites, but a good one. I will also mention that this Blu-ray here contains The Railroader, which is a film he made just before he died, which is sort of like a tribute to his own movies, I suppose, in a way. And then Buster Keaton Rides Again, which is a documentary which was filmed during the making of The Railroader. And I wanted to mention it because I have this from before, The Railroader and The Silent Partner, which I'm gonna keep because The Silent Partner is not, it's not available anywhere else. Unless I've completely missed it. That's a pretty cool. Again, it's like a tribute to him. He sort of plays a version of himself in that TV episode film kind of thing. But I am gonna keep it for that. But I did check with the DVD, and it does not contain the documentary Buster Keaton Rides Again. So I'm pretty sure that I must have been this must have been the first time that I saw it. Although I know that I've seen clips from it because I recognize some of the stuff in it, but I don't think I've seen the whole thing. So it was nice to watch The Railroader again. I actually did enjoy it. I enjoyed it the first time too, but this second time around, maybe a little bit more. Although I also feel like I'm being a little bit too kind with it because it's not really that great, but it is entertaining, and I had a lot of fun with it, and I do like the way the movie opens and closes, kind of bookends the movie, like the same gag in the beginning and in the ending. So it's kind of like a nice kind of road movie on the train tracks. Yeah, and I was gonna say something else. Well, anyway, so that's all for Buster Keaton. Then we have, let's see, if we have 5 more Eureka titles. 2 of them are Masters of Cinema, and then 3 of them are outside of that range. So let me start with the 2 that are in the Masters of Cinema collection. This is Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean, which is a film by Robert Altman. It's a film about nostalgia, about not really wanting to let things go, but it's about more than that also. It's got themes that I enjoyed, but the style of the film, the way it's shot, it feels like a film that would have been shown like on a theater stage. It kind of feels like an adaptation of a theater play. Maybe it is. Maybe they even, if it is, maybe they even talk about it on the disc. But I really have no idea. I don't remember. But whether or not it is, I feel like it very much could be on stage, because it's all takes place in this one store, and it's sort of, I feel like they've intentionally made it feel this way because you can see the outside from the windows, from inside, and when you look out, and it's clear that it's a set. It kind of looks very much like a set. So I don't know if they made this what's the word? If this is what they were trying to do. But yeah, Robert Altman, he's certainly a director that I haven't seen as much of that I would like. Although I do have a couple that I've recently bought that I haven't seen yet. So yeah, well, anyway, I like, for the most part, I like what I've seen from him. But I do feel like I have a lot of his stuff that I haven't seen yet that I would like to see. Okay, now then this one, Harold and Maude. What a likable movie this was. I mean, it's fairly dark. It's a black comedy. It's from early 70s, yeah, 71. Bud Cort and Ruth Gordon are both so great in this, especially Ruth Gordon. She was really lovely in this. And it's a very unique film that really works very well, and I can't wait to watch it again. But I also don't think I'm gonna forget about it anytime soon. So I don't know if I can justify watching it again. Maybe if I watch it with somebody, I can show it to somebody, then I can justify it. But it's just a really lovely film, even though it's kind of dark. Um, yeah, it's got some heart to it for sure, and it's really entertaining, really funny, and very memorable. So one of the better movies from that period, I would say, from the like new Hollywood period, late '60s, early to mid '70s. Then we got, like I said, three more Eureka titles outside of the MOC range. This is The Incident. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this could have been in the Masters of Cinema collection. I'm not sure what the reasoning is exactly for which titles they decide to include and which titles they decide to exclude from that collection. But this is a good one. It's from '67, I want to say. Yeah, and it stars Martin Sheen, or co-stars Martin Sheen. But it's sort of The Incident, I suppose, refers to the climax of the film, which takes place in this train car with these two young sort of delinquents causing a lot of trouble for the other passengers in this train car. But what I like the best about the film is what leads up to this incident, because we get to follow the different parties on their own on their way to the train. And yeah, I really liked it. I don't think I had really heard much about it before, but I will have to say that Martin Sheen was mostly just annoying in this film. I do like him as an actor, but in this, his character was very annoying without any real redeeming qualities, I suppose, unless something happened at the end that I'm forgetting. But overall, he was just kind of like a dick, and yeah, I mean, even antagonists may be likable sometimes. I wouldn't say that he really was. I don't mean to pick him out, but it's just a thought that popped into my head. Okay, so but overall, a really good one. And then we have two more Hong Kong films actually, and these have made me want to get more of them. And I am aware that Eureka has put out more Hong Kong cinema that I don't have, so I'm gonna have to try to get those. In fact, they have a sale right now for a few of the Asian ones, especially the Hong. Well, no, well anyway, I think most of them were from Hong Kong. It doesn't matter. So perhaps if I am able, I will take part in that. But for now, I have these two: Sioux Warriors from the Magic Mountain. I must say that this film really surprised me in terms of the sheer, like the magnitude of effects and of set pieces and just all kinds of madness non-stop throughout this 1.5 hour movie. It never ends, and it's just impossible to keep up with it, and the plot moves just as fast as, I mean, the various plot points and references to pieces of mythology in the film and fantasy elements and rules and whatever it is, people and places, moves just they're introduced at an equally rapid pace as the visual stuff, like the creatures that show up, the sets, the various practical effects and post effects to some extent as well, and just a lot of craziness going on here. And it is, I've never seen a film that's so jam packed with that stuff. Like, it just never ended, and I couldn't believe it. When I was watching it, I almost couldn't believe what I was watching, because I wasn't expecting that. And I don't know if people would think that it's exhausting to watch, or that it's too much, or that it's just a whole bunch of nonsense. I don't know. But to me, it was lovely. It was so fun. And you would have to watch it a couple times and pause and go back to really pick everything up. Anyway, the other one that I have is Mr. Vampire, which is also from Hong Kong, and this is quite comedic. This is more of a comedy, but it's more like a horror comedy, and this is more like a fantasy comedy, I suppose, or like a wuxia, which is I never knew how to pronounce that, but wuxia, you know, the gravity defying kind of martial arts genre. But yeah, so this is more like that, more fantasy, more exaggerated. This is much more sparse with the various set designs and yeah, action sequences. But they're also much more focused on these things. So I could see some people liking something like this better. But to me, this was more of a comedy, like a almost like a straight comedy with a lot of influences from supernatural stuff and scary stuff. And I enjoyed it, but not as much as I would have thought. But ultimately, I had so much fun with those two that it made me want to watch more of them. There's one called that Eureka put out recently. It might not even be out yet as of filming this, but it's called the I could get this wrong. The Bride with White Hair, or The Bride with Another Color of Her Hair, perhaps. I'm not completely sure, but that's one that looked interesting. Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, okay. So that's the stuff that I had to refilm. Now I'm gonna cut back to a week, 2 weeks ago, and we're gonna talk about I don't remember what's next. It's BFI or Criterion, I think. So all right. We have 3 titles from BFI. So first of all, Shaken the Painter. I'm kind of embarrassed, but I don't remember if Shaken was a real. Okay, he was a real life painter, real life 17th century Dutch painter. So this is a fairly short film. It's 70 minutes long, 1 hour 10 minutes, and it's I believe a TV film, but it does look really good visually. It's a really interesting film. It sort of mixes this period drama, which you would expect, with a kind of gothic, supernatural horror element. And the cinematography is really nice. There's a certain depth to the images that I like. So if, let's say, this is the camera, this is the shot. Let's say you have like a doorway here going quite far into the house, and then you have another room much further away from the camera. In this room, through the hallway, you have one character, but then you have a character here close to the camera as well. So the film kind of explores this depth in a really fascinating way. And when I see shots like that, I'm kind of wondering to myself, why don't I see that more often? Because it seems like it's such an interesting way of showing 2 different things happening at the same time, where we understand that both of them happen now, and we can see them both happening, but the 2 people in the shot can't necessarily see what the other person is doing. So you get this kind of bird's eye view or whatever, and it can also communicate internal things pretty well. Anyway, here is a double bill with Peter Watkins' controversial BBC Productions Culloden and The War Game. Culloden is from 1960. Well, it says 64 or 65. I'm not quite sure which one is which. Well, okay, 1960. It doesn't really matter. But 1964 Culloden. I didn't finish Culloden because I don't know what this doesn't happen too often, but I put it on and I couldn't quite get into it, and I was meaning to get back to it, but I just never did. But it takes place. It reconstructs the famous Battle of 1746. Is all it says, and I know nothing about the historical aspect of this, but it tells the story of this battle as if TV cameras were present. So it's kind of like a mockumentary and a period piece at the same time. So Peter Watkins invents the camera much earlier than it actually was invented, basically. And he actually did a similar thing, if you allow me to grab one here that I should have prepared. he does a similar thing with this, La Commune, Paris 1871, and I'll get to this very briefly. But he does that thing in both of these two documentaries. I mean, this one takes place what, a couple hundred years earlier. Not well, yeah, no, not quite 135 or something years earlier, but both of them were obviously before the invention of the camera, or the film camera, the motion picture camera. But he has the characters speaking to a camera as if it was invented much earlier. The War Game is a there's a film called Threads, which documents a sort of a potential nuclear attack on the UK, and the War Game I think came out earlier. I don't remember when Threads came out, but it must have been later than 1965. Threads is one of the most terrifying films I've seen, but the War Game also does it quite effectively. It's pretty short. 69 plus 46 minutes. I don't know which one is which. I think the War Game might have been 46 minutes only. But yeah, so the War Game does a lot in that running time. I'm not sure if that was supposed to be like an educational film. Anyway, this one is really impressive in its scope, and it's sort of famous for the number of extras. I've become a fan of Peter Watkins, but he's a very challenging director. The first thing I saw from him was Edvard Munch, which remains my favorite. But this may be a second. This is a French DVD, but it actually does have English subtitles. I was just lucky to find this at a second-hand store, and I think that it was sealed also. It's a long film, 375 minutes, so that is more than 6 hours. And like I said, it does the same thing as Culloden. It takes place 1871, 25-ish years before the motion picture camera was invented, and even then it looked like crap compared to this. So they're telling a story as if the people in this time period had access to TV cameras and TV stations, and it documents a kind of revolt or revolution among the lower class, and their attempt to kind of establish a autonomous zone. But the film is very upfront in what it's trying to do. It's showing you immediately that this is a film. This is a set. In fact, the camera walks into the building in which the sets are, and the sets look very artificial, by the way. So the camera walks into the building, and then you have the actual camera crew for this film sitting on chairs, and the camera walks past them, and it goes up to the two actors playing TV presenters in the film. And then you have these two actors offering their personal thoughts, or they could have been scripted, I don't quite know, but the film was a collaborative effort. A lot of the extras, they sort of brought their own dialogue, so I'm guessing that maybe these two actors offered their own thoughts about what happened, and the film kind of tells you that this attempt to establish this autonomous zone ultimately wasn't successful. So how do you play a character with this ambition and drive, wanting to achieve this, knowing as an actor that they never were able to achieve it ultimately? So yeah, it's an interesting film. Like Peter Watkins, he every film I've seen from him has been challenging. Like I said, Edvard Munch was probably the easiest movie to watch, but even then he experimented with the camera, not in the sense that it was a mockumentary, but in Edvard Munch he had his actors look into the camera, so he sort of erases this false artificiality. And instead of trying to pretend like this is happening for real, he points it out. He points out that this is a film that you're watching now, and somehow that enhances the realness. Somehow it feels more real, because you're not focused on whether or not this is believable. I don't know. It's yeah, quite an amazing filmography he had. He also had a film called he's still alive, I think, but he hasn't made any. I think this is his last film. So he hasn't made anything since then. So this would have been like 2 decades ago. Yeah, sorry, he has a film called Punishment Park, which Eureka released. So I would like to get that as well. Okay, the next BFI title and the last one is called Magic Lantern Cycle. It is the films of Kenneth Anger, or at least the ones he made between 1947 and 1981. Yeah, he's still alive. He's 90 something, or about 90. Kind of an interesting character. He was very ahead of its time. When he made Fireworks, he was about. Well, it's strange because he says himself that he was born in 1930, and that he was 17 when he made this. But in every source online, it says that he was born in 1927. So I don't know what's going on with that. But even if he was 20, that's still really young. And there's some very sort of explicit homoerotic and violent scenes in Fireworks. Obviously, it's an underground amateur film, but it was distributed, and I think he was sued for some kind of. I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for is. It's not really defamation, is it? It's something else. Obscenity, perhaps. I'm not sure exactly what happened with that, but releasing a film like this in 1947 was obviously, I would have to imagine, well, evidently, since he was sued, quite risky. So what kind of person does that at the age of 20? Well, it's a very interesting person who would do that. And all of his films aren't equally interesting. Like there's a few here, like Pugh's Moment and Custom Car Commandos, maybe Rabbit's Moon also, or Invocation of My Demon Brother, that I didn't really like as much, but they're also very difficult to understand, because they feel kind of esoteric in the sense that they have references to things that aren't necessarily explained. They're all filmed well, without sound, and there's no added dialogue or no added sound. The only added sound is music. So you have all these rather obscure or I'm not sure if they're obscure, but they feel obscure when he presents them in the films, and you don't really know exactly what they're supposed to be referencing. So in something like Inauguration of the Pleasure Dome, which was maybe my favorite out of these, I really don't know what's going on. So it ends up being a strictly visual thing for me. And then when you listen to the commentary, which he recorded for all of these, so it's a terrific Blu-ray set, it's clear that everything is there for a reason. It's not supposed to be just visual. It's actually supposed to be telling a story. I mean, he was an occultist, or is a follower of Aleister Crowley. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff as well, which aren't always that easy to grasp. And so they are, for me anyway, they are quite difficult to understand. But the set is very interesting, and again, the commentaries are really valuable. I really enjoy listening to him talking about his films, and yeah, they are underground films, and so they're not all with the highest of production values, perhaps, and a lot of them he shot with friends and people he knew, and stuff like that. But they are interesting, and I was glad to finally get that set, because I've been curious about it for a while. Okay, I have a few more here from Criterion, so let's try to get through these rather quickly. Badlands by Terrence Malick. I could be saying a few things about this, but I'm gonna be very brief because I have laundry, so I gotta go and get my laundry. I liked it, but I didn't. there was a kind of emptiness to it, which I feel like that was intended, but it also made the movie not quite as enjoyable as it could have been. This one I received from my father for Christmas, to Chris Marker films, La Jetée and Sans Soleil. Both very interesting, but Sans Soleil was the one that I liked the best. It's hard to describe. Essentially, he traveled a lot, and he filmed when he traveled, and then he wrote about the things that he thought about, and the places that he traveled to, and then you have somebody reading these letters. There are some really moving scenes in that, but it's a very kind of free-form, kind of essay film. It doesn't necessarily tell a story. It's a very contemplative film about all kinds of things, about culture and philosophy, and it's very moving. A little bit challenging, but just mostly a moving film. La Jetée was very mysterious to me, but it's also one worth watching, and one that I can understand why it has the reputation that it does. I'm gonna show. I apologize I'm not sure if it's noticeable, but my voice, I feel like I'm on the verge of losing my voice throughout this whole video, so I hope that it's not too noticeable. I'm gonna show these three at once because they're all John Waters movies. Polyester, Multiple Maniacs, Female Trouble. I remember looking at this in particular, the American version of this, just kind of drooling, wanting to see this for myself. So I'm really happy that the UK or that Criterion put this out in the UK as well, and this one too. I'm not sure which one is newest. Well, this one has a higher spy number, so I guess this one is. I had seen only this one before, Female Trouble. I bought the DVD a few years ago, or perhaps more than a few. This could have been as early as 2011, I'm not really sure. And I watched it, and I didn't really like it, so I sold it. And then subsequently I regretted selling it, because I could be talking about John Waters for a long time, and I'm not going to, but I didn't have the most positive of experiences with his films to start with. I saw Pink Flamingos very early on, and I didn't like it. I didn't like this, and so after that I was kind of like, well, maybe he's just not for me. But then eventually I started to watch interview clips with him on YouTube. There's compilations with him and Divine, but mostly just him, on Letterman that are really good. And he was on Craig Ferguson quite a few times. And just very generous with his stories, and always delivering, always having entertaining things to share. He definitely is he has a unique mind, and he looks at the world from a unique perspective, if that doesn't sound too wanky. So he's very interesting to listen to, and so I noticed that I would listen to him in interviews a lot, and I was like, well, wait a minute, so how come I'm so fascinated by this man but I don't like his films? Well, I should try to do something about that. So I have been doing something about that. I watched a few of the ones that I hadn't seen. I watched Hairspray, Pecker, what else? Well, Serial Mom I saw years ago. I watched A Dirty Shame as well, which is not the best, but I decided to give this one a second chance, and I'm really glad that I did, because I ended up really liking this one a lot. And I really hope for Criterion to put out Pink Flamingos as well eventually, and maybe Desperate Living also. That's the one that I haven't seen. But Female Trouble might be my favorite from him. It's got a really good song as well, and the ending is quite obviously it's very sleazy, but in all its amateurishness, there is a lot of great stuff. And I can understand why I didn't like it in the past, but there's a lot to love about the trash that he put on film. Polyester is a little bit different. I almost feel like his early movies are very amateurish in the way that they look, and then his later ones, they look more professional. And I haven't seen Desperate Living, but Polyester almost to me feels like a bridge between these two periods. Um, yeah, this one I saw for the first time now on the Criterion, and it had something called Odorama cards that was handed out in the movie theater, and then there was a number that showed up on screen, and then you would scratch that number off the card and then smell the number to get an idea of what the characters smelled. So this was an idea that John Waters had after. Well, he's a fan of William Castle, who usually did these kind of gimmicks in the theater. And he also talks about on the Blu-ray that they had tried to do this kind of smellorama thing before, but they were all pleasant smells. So he wanted to go the opposite direction. I haven't used it. I wasn't sure if I was gonna do that or not. Like, I felt like, well, I'd rather keep the Blu-ray intact, honestly. And I enjoy the film anyway. It is kind of strange when you get these prompts or whatever to, okay, 3 is blinking, so make sure to scratch the 3 off the cards, and then you can smell the fart that Divine is smelling in the film. So it sounds well, I was gonna say it sounds very lowbrow. I hate that I thought of that word. That's not what it is. It's just intentionally campy, and I don't know. It's definitely enjoyable. I didn't like it as much as Female Trouble. Um, Multiple Maniacs. Multiple Maniacs. This is a very early film, 1970. I think his first film in sound. He made one called Mondo Trasho, which honestly I'm not that interested in. But I believe that was shot without sound. Um, there's a really fun sequence, or quite an interesting sequence in a church, a rather quote-unquote blasphemous sequence in a church that I liked. And there are some overall kind of strange scenes in this. Honestly, I was trying to look for meaning watching this film, but I don't know that John Waters necessarily had a grander message in mind. I think he just wanted to put some fun stuff that he enjoyed on screen for other people to enjoy, and I did enjoy it. But I am missing that little extra something that I feel like Female Trouble has actually an important story to tell. Even if that wasn't his intention, I feel like there is something there. There is like a basis. There is a foundation, like something that the movie can stand on. But Multiple Maniacs doesn't really have that in the same way. But it is fun. I do enjoy it. And all of the Criterions have commentaries, and he's always, like I said, he's very interesting to listen to. So his commentaries are no exception. I have one Criterion left, and then another Blu-ray to end with, which is well, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's sort of associated with this, I guess, because this is True Stories, a film by David Byrne, and you may look at this cover and recognize this man, because it's John Goodman who's in this. And for many years, when I was looking at this cover, I had no idea that John Goodman was the man on the cover, because I've been interested in this for a while because of David Byrne. He is a musician first and foremost. He is known for the band, the great band Talking Heads. But I knew about his one sort of film as a director, True Stories. I've known about for a few years. I've been really curious about it, and always been looking at this cover. And it took me a long time until recently to actually turn it over and to realize that this was actually John Goodman on the cover. Anyway, Unfortunately, this is a bit damaged here at the spine. This is not so much a story as it is like a kaleidoscope of eccentric characters and colorful scenes, musical scenes. I could totally see this film growing on me if I return to it in the future, because there is a lot of fun stuff to unpack here. Typically, I'm not the biggest fan of musicals. You know, the idea of characters spontaneously bursting into song, I always had a bit of a difficulty enjoying for whatever reason. I just never, it was never my thing really. But I am trying to watch things that I normally wouldn't like, and so I did find things in the musical numbers here that I definitely enjoyed, and I think that maybe a second watch would be beneficial here. This is really uncomfortable. I feel like my voice is just on 15%. Anyway, I'm almost done. I really enjoyed it. I'm not sure why this was so expensive though. I mean, I feel like at least when it comes to the UK Criterions, the ones that they release in these kinds of digipacks, they cost like £26, and I don't really understand what the justification is for that price tag, honestly, because is it just the packaging, or is it movies they feel it, let's see if I can find the right words. Is the case that when they have a film and they have special features that are more than what they usually have, they give them this kind of visual deluxe edition as well to kind of mirror the contents? Because in that case, I suppose I can understand it, but it does seem a little bit pricey with £26 for this. There is quite a lot of contents here, but yeah, I don't know. But I'm glad that I bought it, and I'm glad that I've seen it. And the last one that I was reminded of is this one, Stop Making Sense. Talking Heads, a very famous, beloved concert film directed by Jonathan Demme. This is a German DVD. I did compare the special features with the Second Sight a German Blu-ray. I compared it with the Second Sight release, and I think I came to the conclusion that they're basically the same, and this was much cheaper. So yeah, I was getting a few things from Amazon Germany anyway, and so I got this and paid about €7, I think. And that's a great price for one of the best concerts that I've ever seen. Whether in person or, on a screen. This is just so much fun. I understand why people have been going on and on and on about this over the years, because it's an incredible performance. It's one of the most like controlled and deliberate and well balanced performances that I've seen. I think I've been dying to watch this again ever since I saw it, which has only been a few weeks, I think, maybe a couple months, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, it helps being a fan of this band, of course, but I think even if you don't know too much about them, I think you would enjoy it. Like the musicality, the choreography, and I guess the communication before the show between the people on stage and the people behind the camera is really all great, because you have certain shots where what's happening on screen it seems like it's framed perfectly. So they have to have communicated a lot, like, okay, so how do we organize the set and the choreography so that the camera can pick it up in the perfect way, and everything just works. Anyway, I'm not gonna go on more about that, but it's such a blast, and I would recommend anybody to watch it. So that is it for this time. As always, I feel like I'm running out of steam, and I kind of have to keep revving up this rusty old engine. because I feel like I'm losing it when I'm talking about movies. Sometimes I just feel like I would just like to turn off the camera right now, but I have to kind of pick myself up and try to come up with a few more things to say. So I don't even need to mention this. I'm just being hard on myself as usual, but I hope that you enjoyed whatever things that I had to say about these titles. And I do have a couple more stacks of Blu-rays and DVDs coming at some point. So yeah, stay tuned for that, I guess. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Gonna go pick up my laundry right now, and then I'm gonna go work out, which I'm looking forward to. So that's that. Thank you and goodbye.